We all got the agenda for our meeting today?
Yes. Yep.
All right, cool. So what we'll do is, obviously the first issue we have here is the kitchen floater positions. At our last meeting, there was a little bit of not knowing exactly what these persons were doing, and we tracked them down. We talked to them in pretty good length about what goes on with that job, or those jobs, I should say, and we got some answers. So Vance is going to share that with you now.
Okay.
Okay.
So in talking to the kitchen floaters, discussing what they do in their daily routines, they fill in for, I'm going to use Victor Point and Silver Crest as examples because those were the ones they gave to me. Those are schools with one cook in the facility. So when they fill in for them a whole day, they're doing the lead cook job 100%. As well, they're doing inventory of what product's there, what product they need, sending that off to the supervisor, just as a lead cook does. They're pressure washing the walk-in freezer racks. That's different than any of the cooks do. Cleaning out the product, redoing the product, and then, I guess one of the biggest things they said they do is there's no assistant cook that's just left on their own, and they're being left on their own, being expected to know multiple sites, not just one kitchen. So I want to make sure and share that with you guys so you actually get an understanding of how difficult their job is. Bounce from one school to the next with different menus. There's a notebook over there. Go wing it.
So basically, that's kind of a thumbnail sketch of what we found, and you'd asked the question if they do lead cook functions, because we had placed them under that same pay scale. Well, the answer to that is yes, they do that, in addition to many other functions, none of which, I shouldn't say none, most of which assistant cooks do not do, which is why we don't believe that they're appropriate under that salary range. Thank you, salary range. So that's what we found.
So do I understand that this person operates as a floater in only a couple of schools?
No, district-wide.
Because I sort of thought that that was a floater position that would possibly sub in at any school.
Yes. District-wide, they go from school to school where the need is.
So Vance, do you know the frequency by which, they would go up to Silver Crest to be a lead for the day, or Victor Point?
They would fill in for any time someone called in sick. As far as I know, Sodexo has not hired any substitutes in the last year.
What's involved in being head cook there? Is it a situation where we bring the food out and they essentially have to get it set up for serving?
No, the food's all prepared on.
Yeah, food is prepared on both of those two sites that Vance referenced.
I think it's prepared at all of our sites, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
So I guess the question was, how frequently does it happen that they go to those sites where there's not a head cook?
Well, I think what Vance was trying to say is that you could probably look back and see the people that have called in, and you would have access to that information. Off the top of our heads, we can't tell you 100%, but the issue for me would be whether it's 10 times in the last year or 2, they have to have this knowledge, they have to be able to do the job, so therefore they have to have the skills. But I would imagine, like anything else, it fluctuates based on illness and what's happening,
Well, and I think the struggling point that, both, or at least I'll just speak for myself, is the level of responsibility that this person has acknowledging that there are times where stepping into those positions raises their responsibility level, but overall their day-to-day over the course of a year responsibility is, I would say, is less than the assistant cook. And so I think even though that's where they're currently at. So I think that's the struggle that we're trying to wrestle with here is, on a more day-to-day basis, they're at that assistant cook level with the occasional time that they have to step into a couple of those sites where there's only one cook in the lead role.
Well, the inventory management that they do between the sites isn't as simple as just pick up and drop off, right? They've got to discuss with the supervisor, find out what's needed, go pull what's needed, or even decide on their own what's needed, how much, where to take it, and when. Dan, the supervisor there is not overly capable of doing that job herself, and that he's taking on, the responsibility of inventory control that a lead cook would normally do.
Right.
And that's pretty much on a daily basis.
And the other piece to that too is that, when we had one of those meetings for a different issue, we were talking about some of the logistics surrounded with them having to meet people to do, to coordinate shipments, to make sure the product gets put away, that it gets delivered, and all that kind of stuff, and created a couple issues when that wasn't happening, properly. So I would say that's a different responsibility than assistant cook who's there serving food. They're served food largely clean. It's a very neat service, but much different than what we're talking about here. So I think maybe what would be good, unless you guys have more questions, would be to move along.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And give you a chance to caucus and talk about it a little bit.
Right.
So moving to maintenance 4, as I showed next on the agenda. Maintenance 4 position, we know you had some reservations about our placement versus yours. And we realized this was kind of happening in a vacuum where it was just your opinion and our opinion. We decided it would make more sense to see if we could get some other, processes and how it's done in other areas. And so we pulled up another area, that's not far away that we came up with some information about that we thought might help the process. With that, I'm going to turn over to Vance again.
Sure. So our job description has many qualifications or minimum qualifications that require certificates. I went to one of our nearby school districts and compared their maintenance position that at a higher pay range doesn't have those certificates. So I'm struggling with why would we pay our people less to know more?
Yeah, essentially, the other district pays a little bit more, and they have a few less requirements. And so that's the kind of the closest example we could find. And it just we felt it reinforced our ask to be placed where we originally put it. Do you need that number again where we'd asked for it to be put, Dan, or do you have it from last time?
You had asked for a P1 column, which was, I think, roughly halfway between the P and the Q column, if I recollect.
Yeah, sounds right. So that's where we came up with that information, and we just felt it was good to have some real life examples versus just kind of our opinions on things on each side. And we can absolutely share that with you if you want to see that. We can send.
Yeah, if you could send that. What district was that, Vance?
That's Dallas.
Okay.
Hey, I just got Dallas. All right.
And they're calling it a maintenance 2 position over there with a higher pay range than what you guys are calling maintenance 4. But the job descriptions still theirs is.
Do we have other positions that are halfway between, something, and what is the percentage difference between P and P1 versus our other, gaps, if you will, between positions?
Sure, we went a little bit about that too. So we asked for the same dollar increment change between maintenance 1 and maintenance 2, maintenance 2 to maintenance 3, maintenance 3 to maintenance 4.
So the same percent
So we're retaining the same percentage gap.
Mm-hmm.
actually it would be a little less percentage.
And I think that the answer to your second question there, Nancy, was going back and looking at past contracts, they've had in the past, they've had, P-1 or H-1. They've done it in the past. But typically what I've seen is when they come into bargaining, they just move the column, put in another column or whatnot. That's what I came across when I went back and looked. They have done that, the P-1 or whatever it is. I think one case it was -2 also, but they've largely gone into bargaining, like just added a column and without the dash, maybe put another letter or move,
Which would be easier in our contract. We're actually missing a letter as far as columns. I think it's H or I.
That's true. We went back and looked, we're missing a letter, so we could actually just add that H column or whatever it is, But that answers your second question, I think.
So the comparisons you're giving us from Dallas, are those at the top of the schedule? Are they in the bottom of the schedule? Is it all the way through the schedule, or?
Through the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They're all paid in us through the schedule.
Because I think that it sounds like it's a position where when we hire somebody as maintenance 4, isn't it likely that they always come in with experience? I mean, we really aren't placing anybody with step 1, 2, or whatever, because we wouldn't hire them if they didn't have years of experience. And now with the Equal Pay Act, we can't, say, okay, we hired them from the outside, so we're just going to ignore the fact that they had years of experience doing that exact same job, let's say. So it seems like what's relevant is probably the top of the schedule, because that's where everybody will be if they're a maintenance 4.
Sure. The top that we asked for was $29.85, and the top that Dallas is paying was above that. I believe it's $29.93.
Mm-hmm.
So we're proposing slightly under their top by like 15 cents or 10 cents or something like that. So
do other districts have, that comparable position? Because this is a new position for us at maintenance 4. I'm assuming that larger districts are more likely to have these multiple maintenance positions, whereas a smaller district might have fewer and they would be a little more general. But in terms of Dallas, I'm not sure if I know the size of Dallas in comparison to Silver Falls, but what about other districts in the area? Is this a situation where they're abnormally high?
Yeah, here's the thing. So, like Vance pointed out, we have been looking, but the thing is, you can't do a true title apples to apples. You can't say maintenance 4 here, maintenance 4 there, because they consider what we consider maintenance 4, maintenance 2 there, right? So you have to really see through each job classification. So far, what we found is Dallas, and we have not finished that process. Did you want to speak about that, Ben?
Well, I do have an example from Lake Oswego. They're only 33 miles away from us, and they're paying a grounds turf person $30.17 an hour. Requires.
Well, Lake Oswego is kind of an atypical. What about Salem? I mean, they certainly have more different kind of positions.
Lake Oswego is within driving distance, easy driving distance, 45 minutes on Google this morning at 8 o'clock. So,
well, to answer your question, we're still looking, because we have to go job description by job description. We can't, if we could just type in and do a simple title, But like I said, what we consider grounds 4 here, or maintenance 4 here, they consider maintenance 2 there, and so we can't just do a simple search. We have to go through and the actual job title and make sure that we're not giving you something where they're out here, washing trucks all day, and we're saying that that's comparable because it's a similar title, right? So that process will take a minute. It's unfortunately we have to get each job classification from the school because that's not in the contract. So we are in that middle of that process, but it will definitely take a bit to get that figured out to that level. But yeah,
what's the when we talked about this last time, I think we had the hope of implementing and then adding, bringing this into just our bargaining as we look at, potential increases for these columns. you know, is that still a possibility that we would implement at P and discuss this in bargaining? As we've looked over your comparables, you know, we potentially see some areas on that end of the salary schedule that, you know, we might need to offer something different than, you know, let's say across the board everybody gets the same percentage, where, you know, we've identified some areas where maybe we're short in those upper maintenance positions.
I would say that if we were to move this over, you know, I mean, the give from us would be to move it over. We would need some give from you guys, and like maybe potentially one area, just talking off the cuff here, would be, since we are soon to have a vacancy in one of the floater jobs, since that is a job that could be combined into a full-time job. You know, if we were able to do something with that, I feel like that would show give on your part and would give us some flexibility to maybe move it over to main bargaining, with the understanding that we both, you know, preserve our sides of the argument. I think we could figure something like that out.
So
Yes,
we're filling this position now, Dan? Is that right?
Well, we have one, the job's been posted, and we have one internal candidate for it that we would be interested in offering that person the position. I haven't checked in with Lauren, the manager, to see if where he's at in that process. Vance might even know more than I do on that. But, you know, our plan would be to implement at P, and while we still negotiate this matter.
I guess, Hobie, if, you know, what I've seen done in other situations is that we implement the minimum that is going to end up, which would be P. I mean, we're proposing P. But then retroactivity, if we end up negotiating something higher before we're done, then that would be retroactive to whatever date this person moves into the position. So they wouldn't lose out. I mean, I think it's a shame not to be able to place them at least at the minimum that we're proposing, instead of hiring him at O, I guess, is the fallback position. So I'm wondering if that's something that you can agree to, with the idea that, you know, we're still in bargaining. And I think one of our concerns here is, how does what we do here affect what we might be doing for multiple positions as we go through the general bargaining? And, you know, it's a bigger picture maybe than just a position.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and I think we could figure something out along those lines to move from this process to that, if we get a little give and take, because that would be us taking it out of this process to go to that process. If we could figure out some, maybe with the other floater jobs, since it's now vacant or will be shortly, we could move both those over and have the discussion for both, and then have you know, full-time floater to talk about and a maintenance floor to talk about full-time. That's something we could entertain, but obviously there's a little give, there's a little take there. So you guys would probably want to talk about that in caucus, is my guess. But
to be fair, also, I compared our last year's the proposed column to last year's wages at Dallas. I didn't compare it to this year's wages in anticipation of, you know, a possible raise for everyone this year.
So
but also, Dallas is in full bargaining this year. I just found out when I got handed that chapter, so I'll let you know when we figure that out.
Since Hobie, you kind of presented a hypothetical or kind of a give and take, if you will, Vance, I think this kitchen floater position was an attempt to solve a problem that just created a new problem. And wondering, you know, since we have an opening, you know, what if, and this is just me again, off the top of my head, is, you know, what if we re-examined how we're staffing our kitchens, and instead of having these floaters, you know, invested in, you know, maybe some additional staff to provide some, you know, provide a little bit more support so that we're not trying to, put Band-Aids over some wounds, if you will. I mean, it just feels like this position has just been there to kind of ebb and flow around, and because you hit the nail on the head, is we don't hire subs, and that's, I think, what was driving that position, is having people paid and ready to work when someone calls in sick. And maybe the solution is we go to subs, or maybe we hire, I know, Hobie, you've talked about taking these 2 floaters and hiring 1 person. Maybe it's taking the current existing kitchen floater, assigning that person to a school as an assistant cook, but we hire maybe 2 more assistant cooks or something, or we re-examine how we're staffing all of this, because right now I don't think it's working out that great.
Well, I would say that we're always open to looking at making things work better for both sides. I do think there's been, this is a new job, so there's all these unforeseen things, right? It's been there for 20 years. We know how it goes, So I think that the rarity of the kitchen floater, I think, is that this is one of those rare positions that you could make full time. I don't think you can do that with most assistant cooks. It's just the fact of the business, the way it runs. So the other piece of that is keeping. I think it'd be good to keep a floater, because I've seen in other past lives here with different unions, having essentially a utility person who can save you money on subs, save you money on these additional people to hire. If you want to hire more folks, we'll take more members. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that I've seen that can really be turned into something that gives you a lot of flexibility and cost savings that come with that. I think that you're right. This is such a new thing that it's been probably a little poorly managed and a little poorly executed, and having some more looks around that piece and trying to figure that out. But more importantly, having that, I think, as a full-time position, gives you even more flexibility to make sure that you're getting the needs you need taken care of, the way you need it taken care of, rather than having like 3 different people trying to figure this out, right? So I would say we're absolutely willing to look at that. I think that you can get these kind of utility people that go from school to school can really give you a lot of flexibility. We're actually proposing similar jobs in other districts right now. Not just floaters for kitchens, but for other things, because the district has realized that having somebody who knows their stuff, it's a known quantity, being able to shift a little, and they're on the bottom of the seniority list, so that's their job, right? Until they move up, and having that flexibility has actually led to a lot better outcomes for them. So I would say we should definitely take a hard look at it. I think that's right, but I do think that there is an opportunity here for both sides, especially for you guys to get some flexibility and cost savings. But you run the business, you let me know.
Well, I think the one thing I'm certain of is we're going to be looking at whatever we do with these 2 in the context of what our overall bargaining is going to be, and I'm concerned about the idea that we'd be paying this position more under your proposal than assistant cook. Is that right?
Currently, we have it at the lead cook status. Yes, That is our first proposal.
Yeah, and I don't like to create new problems by solving one problem or attempting to solve one problem. And I'm concerned a little bit about the idea that the assistant cooks would say, well, look, I do this higher level of work every day. The floater doesn't do that every day. The floater, may have to know different kitchens, but a lot of times the floater goes into some place where there's a head cook and spends their day there. And they're not exercising, any of these higher level skills, if you will. So, I'm assuming that you're also concerned about the idea that by solving a problem for one person, we get, 4 or 5 people upset because they believe that they do, this type of work on a daily basis, and the floater might do it occasionally.
So I would say this, Nancy. I would say that I'm least concerned about that because of after digging into it a bit with Vance, I don't think that that is the case. I really do think we're talking about a uniquely different situation here. However, kind of looping it back to what you guys were talking about, bringing it to main bargaining. If we're talking about one of these jobs for the kitchen folks and one of these jobs for the maintenance folks, we're talking about that in bargaining. I feel like we could flush out some of these points a little better. And we'd be willing to maybe do that if we're talking about one full-time floater and one full-time maintenance. We'd be willing to do that. And let's see where the placement puts them. Let's see what we're talking about. We're talking about financials, and maybe some of this will get resolved through that if you guys are interested. But I think we got to figure out that piece first if we're talking about one job for each going into the main bargaining. And yes, you would pay them at the minimum of where you're paying them if we did that, and then we would bargain from there. I mean, each side would have their ability to keep their argument intact, or why they think what should be the pay level going forward. But that might solve part of what I think you're asking for here, if I'm not misunderstanding.
Well, I think Dan and I will have to talk about this. We may have to get back to you after talking to other people too. So, anything else on that, on those two?
No, I wanted to move to the PERS diversion, which is next on our agenda.
Yeah.
I think Nancy and I have had about 3 minutes of conversation on this in the past. I sent this letter to you, Dan. It's the language from the law, and I know you guys are saying, well, we'll just follow the law, and I understand that. I already shared this with Nancy. I don't know if I've shared with you, Dan, but I listened to the oral arguments of the case. I think the union's going to lose. It did not go well for our side. My concern is that people know about this information, and this language, if we had an MOU, or we can just roll it right into the contract now, would go into the retirement section. So if I'm Ron or Vance, and I'm going, oh, you know what, I'm going to retire in the next 5 years, or okay, I got a plan, I'm going to retire in 3 years. I know I have to self-pay that 2.5% if I want it, because that the last 3 years is what's based on what you get for your retirement, right? This would be information for them to read to say, okay, I see that I need to do this in preparation for retirement. I'm going to pay this money. The district doesn't cost the district anything. They got to do it by law if it's requested to be taken out of the check, right? So that's the purpose behind that. There's nothing more to it. The only way anybody could file a grievance is if you weren't doing it, which you're bound by the law to do it. So I don't see a huge sticking point here on my side. I'm just trying to get information out that's really clear, because sooner or later we're going to go and say, well, I didn't know that, right? And then people are going to be hurt, and it's going to be trying to unbake the cake at that point. But if it's in their contract under the retirement section, and we've done everything we can reasonably do to put it out that way. That's the thinking behind the PERS diversion language, talking about that piece of Senate Bill 1049. There's like 5 different damn pieces to that bill, but that's the piece that we're talking about. They're not going to have anything up and running, even though it starts July 1st. I've been talking to our folks, been talking to them. They're not going to have anything up and running to do anything with it until October. So there's nothing in between. Hopefully we'll be done with our contract by then. So the idea is just to have another way for people to read and understand what they need to do when they're ready to retire, if they want to get their maximum retirement benefit.
Well, do you have any idea of when they're predicting that the decision will come down?
I don't know. Initially, they were saying that they thought that it would be April 1st, and it would come down probably July 1st. Well, I think they did the oral arguments, I want to say, in June. So
yeah,
if that
not too long ago.
Yeah, if it was the same timetable, that would be September, I would think. But the reality is we just don't know, right? They're going to take their time and do it whenever they feel like doing it. But this really does not hinge on that lawsuit, because the worst case scenario, I guess, would be that we prevail and they can't do it, and then that would be it. That MOU would go away, right? There'd be no point for it. I've been real hesitant to do. We've been nibbling around the edges with different things, because like work backs and different things, because they're immediate that we have to deal with. But I've been real hesitant to deal with anything with the main body of that because of that lawsuit. Dan is one of the folks that has signed a abatement letter waiting for the decision before we do anything, right? And I think that's the right move. The only thing about this is that if we don't have a decision in October, then this affects people now that are thinking. We have a person on our committee that's thinking of retiring in the next year. Well, we can tell them, they're going to know. But going forward, like, how will people plan for that if the average Joe or Sally doesn't read their policies or doesn't pay attention to the laws until it really gets to the end, and now they're figuring out their retirement. They're like, oh, wait a minute, I want to retire this year, but if I want full benefit, I got to work another 3 years and pay, right? That's what we're trying to avoid here. And if you have a better way of doing it, we're absolutely willing to listen. Mm-hmm. But that's the idea behind this. We're really trying to figure out a way to give everybody every opportunity to understand this. You guys don't want to be every year putting out stuff every year about this, I would imagine. So,
so basically, what you're saying is you're proposing it as kind of a notice provision, so that people would read it. But I've never had much faith that people read the collective bargaining agreement when we finish negotiating them. I mean, are there other ways that OSEA locals are trying to alert people to this issue if they're close to retirement, or are they all just waiting to see what happens in the court case?
I think a lot of folks are waiting. There is some folks trying to be proactive in the districts, work with districts. The districts are putting out constant information and emails that I have a lot of concern whether people read that as well. But when they see it doesn't see their name on it, right? They kind of, I think that there's unfortunately no good way to do this. And there's many people that don't read their contract. Sure there is, absolutely. But now that we have this mandate of the law where we have to give to within 30 days, and I feel like there's a better opportunity to make people aware at that, when we're having that 30-minute meeting, discuss their issues about unions and stuff. We can highlight that as one of the pieces if we have it in the contract so that they know. Now they start their career with us, but now they know, right? We have the ability to point to something. We can say, here it is right here. You're taking it with you. More likely to keep it if it's a little booklet. You're more likely to keep it than if it's a single piece of paper that gets lost in the shuffle. We're winging it here, Nancy. We're trying to figure out a way to do this to prepare for the if there's a bad outcome for us on this. So if you guys have a better way of doing it, we're absolutely willing to listen to that.
And Hobie, when did you say that the diversion actually starts happening?
October.
October 1st?
We'll be cold October, yeah. Yeah, October 1st will be cold.
Okay.
Up and running. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I thought that they delayed that action so that the predictable court case could wend its way through, but maybe it got slowed down by COVID or something.
It got slowed down by COVID, and my understanding is that they delayed it because they don't know how to do it, Nancy. that's what we're hearing back, that they're figuring out the process, so. But maybe they won't have it figured out by October. I don't know.
If we put a notice out and some people who are close to retirement say, wow, I better do this because, everybody's saying that we might lose, the unions might lose. Is there any penalty for people if they, does that bulk up their retirement still more, or is it become like wasted dollars that they put in if you were to win?
Yeah, my understanding from what I'm being told is that how PERS works out here is the last 3 years. Now, specifically what you're talking about is, my understanding is that money would be refunded if we were to prevail in the case, if they were even able to pay it in before we get a decision on the case, because their processes down there for this employer diversion from paycheck is different than this regular PERS diversion, and they don't know how to do that process fully yet. They're still working through how to figure that out. So I think there's a good chance that we'll get a decision before they get that figured out, from what I'm hearing. But my understanding is if they were to deduct the money, then it would then be returned, which I'm sure will be a fun process from the state. But that's what I'm hearing. If people were to take it out and they were to lose, and the state was to lose the lawsuit, is that the money would be refunded. That's what I've heard. Take it for what it is. So.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a situation where we're so and still in such a state of uncertainty. Certainly putting something in the contract I wouldn't be in favor of. But I'm wondering whether, it's not better to just put together some sort of a joint information communication to members saying, here's what the legislature did. You're close to retirement, so you're getting this letter from us. And, here's your options. If you, want to hedge your bets, you could do this starting October 1st. I mean, I think people are a lot more likely to look at that, especially if it's kind of targeted to the people who will really be impacted, which are people who are going to retire in the next couple of years. I don't have a problem with the idea we would put out something jointly that would serve to educate people.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either, Nancy. My thinking more was like, what happens next year? When we get a new batch of people who retire, what happens a year? That's more of the concern. But maybe that's a good stopgap measure for right now, since we are waiting for that decision. And then we could move PERS to, because if the decision comes down, we will have to bargain something. The Herb's already said that. So maybe this would be best to be held with that. So, if we have to bargain it, we can do the stopgap for now, and we can bargain that piece when that piece is done. That actually makes some good sense to me. I think that might be a way to resolve this if you guys are okay with that.
If you've got some sample language or some templates that we could work off of, I'd be happy to put together a joint statement to go out.
Okay, I'll have you jot that down, Vance. Yeah. Okay, I'll have Vance get back to you on that one.
All right.
And then we'll hold everything else just until we get the decision, and then we'll sit down and get to meet some more, I'm sure.
All right, so we had break room at Silvercrest.
All right, Vance.
So I think it's been the last year and a half or maybe it's 2 full school years, but they haven't had a break room that I know of at Silvercrest. Obviously, we want someplace for our employees to be able to go and relax during their breaks. I've caught some of them out eating lunch in their car. I've caught some of them in the storage room eating their lunch, sitting at what really isn't even a desk, but more like a side table with stuff on it. So I want to know what the plan is for having a break room for these folks.
Well, one more piece to that too. When I was up there looking at this issue, there's people eating in the same area where food is stored and served, and that's not really good for anybody, especially given what's happening now. There's people eating in the hallways, the students are running around.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, not just we need a break room so we can, be cool and have our thing. We really need something so people can separate themselves from the students, especially with the social distance that are coming back in the fall, and not eat around the same food that's being served, being stored. I mean, it's not just an inconvenience. There's other concerns there that I noted when I was checking this out. So we wanted to bring it to your attention so we could try to figure something out and just see what ideas you had on that front.
Vance, where do you know if there was a break room before and something changed?
There was. The break room was taken and turned into a counselor's office.
Yeah, we added counseling at all the schools. Okay.
And we don't know the answer to this either. Okay. So I mentioned, like, if you had an old portable you could put over there or something, and Vance shot that down pretty quickly. So we don't know the answer to this either, but we definitely want to have it on your radar. I know we've looked into it pretty extensively and see if we can figure out something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, Dan, the coffee maker that they have for the school is in the secretary's office, in the front main office. Every parent that walks by there gets to look at it.
Yeah.
It's okay if you don't have a response.
Yeah,
like
we do not have a response. Yeah, we don't.
Okay. And then I guess what we'll do is we would like to have a break room. That's our proposal. So
Okay.
We'll leave you to get back to us with what you think that might look like, or how that might work. On the grievance piece, if we're okay to move to that.
Yeah.
So we've made additional information request because we're really trying to like get to the heart of things here. And I know you said that wouldn't be something you could do by today. It's understandable. After looking through the information, talking about it, we figured it out kind of late last week that we needed a little additional information. I'm not entirely sure what we can do on our side without getting all the information so that we're talking apples to apples and not, apples to kumquats or something. So if you guys want to talk some more about this, we can. I think that what we think would be best is to extend the abeyance a little longer so we can get that information request. When do you think that you can have that, Dan?
I think we might be able to have that by the end of the week.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess my question, is it doesn't necessarily feel like, based on our last conversation, whether, the MOU was, there was a violation of violation of the MOU. It's more of a disagreement about, what time and money and what's equal to what. I'm just wondering, I'll get you the information so that you can lay it all out and see, was the MOU violated? But, wondering, and this is where you and Nancy can weigh in a little bit, but, is there a grievance to be had based on, something being violated?
Well, I would say that the MOU is an extension of the contract, right?
Sure,
And
I agree with you there.
Under our grievance procedure, it's, what was the violation? Was it a misinterpretation, a misapplication? Those are the standards, right? And so we would say that the MOU is being it's not being applied correctly, based on our understanding. So that would be the crux of our grievance, would be that the language is not being applied as we understood it. So it's misinterpretation on your part, I guess, is how we would say that. So yes, we think there's a grievance here. But as I'm digging more and more, like I told you, I think the last time, I'm glad that this isn't like just a nonsense grievance. We actually have some differences here, and there is some complexity to this that at first blush was not necessarily known until we saw some of this information. So we do want to dig into it and get the exact difference to make sure that we're telling you exactly the correct thing based on our interpretation and making sure we understand your interpretation. And so that's why we need that information. It's not, we're not trying to pest you, I promise. We pest you in other things, but not in this. We're trying to figure this out so that we can have that discussion in a meaningful way and make sure that our claims are correct,
In a way, it sort of seems like you're having second thoughts about the agreement that was reached, but from our standpoint, time and money are two different things there. So sometimes it's easier for the employer to have the employees take time off rather than to pay them. And so you might, that's where you get solutions that essentially they don't equate each other, but that's more or less, easier for the employer to absorb the time off than to absorb the extra costs. So you give a premium, or you give a more advantageous option for the employee just to take the time off. As I understand it, this really is about people who projected that they were going to use it, but then in the end didn't use it. That's what this is.
Yeah, yes, and I understand your argument. I wouldn't say we're having second thoughts. I would say that the first time I ever heard the equation of time versus money was last time we talked. Okay, that was the benefit. That's the first time I heard that, and that absolutely could have been the understanding on your side from the beginning, but it obviously wasn't on ours. So that's part of what we're trying to work through here, right? And we're trying to figure that out by getting a complete picture of this. we do understand that position, and I'll tell you that makes a certain amount of sense to have that position. That was not conveyed at the beginning, and at least in a way that everybody understood, I guess. And we're just trying to figure it out. I think that we can have this more nuanced conversation once we have a complete picture of what happened, rather than talking the abstract. And that's what we're trying to figure out here. And I do understand the difference between paying somebody versus, paying them one way versus paying them another way. That there's merits to both sides of that argument, but I just don't think we're quite to the point where we have anything more than more of a theoretical discussion, because I just want to see all the facts so that I can say, when you say something, I go, nope, right here, or I can say, yep, you're right, Nancy, it's right here, but I don't have that ability until we have this complete picture. So believe me, I got plenty to do. I'm not trying to make more work for myself or for you. It's just, I really, like I said, I've been in for arbitrators and I've presented arbitrators. The one cardinal rule is have your story straight when you're in front of them, right? So when you're trying to figure out the facts at that point, they have little time and little temperament for that. So I really do want to understand and make sure that we are maybe we'll agree to this and settle this, but but in the meantime, I just want to make sure we have the right discussion. We all understand. We understand where things went afoul, so we can fix that for next time. But we have the ability to have that thoughtful, discussion and have one story when we go before a third party to explain, this is what we think, this is what you think, what do you think, right? So like I said, that's why I would recommend pushing this out a little bit further. Timelines are still intact. It's more just getting a complete picture. I really do want to be talking about actual facts and not theoretical facts, so that so I'd hate to say something and then turn around and say, well, actually, no, Nancy, it's this, or, oh, I was agreeing with you, Nancy, but actually the documents show this. So, it just will kind of get in the cart before the horse a little bit here until we have the full picture, in my opinion.
Well, we have another bargaining session scheduled for August 6th. And so I don't know if it would be, Dan, do you think that you can get the information to them, somewhat in advance of that, so that they can digest it, and then maybe we plan a little pre-meeting on this topic or other similar topics?
Yeah, and if I could, Vance, just to make sure I understand your request. So let's use Maddie Traver. She worked 40 hours that week and requested the carryover because we added that MOU for some additional time for time to be used. Are you asking for that group of the data on that group of people? How many hours are left? Does Maddie still have 40 hours left, or does she cash some of that out? I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking for.
Right. I want to know, the X should be a number, right? They requested to carry over so many hours. How many hours are they carrying over? And
So
the same with
go ahead.
Same with the other people on there, for people that got paid out. What was the actual amount of hours they were paid out?
Oh, so if we're looking at that, so option A column. So let's take the top, Joseph Castillo. Joseph Castillo would have been paid out 8 hours.
Right, and that I can get from it.
Okay.
I see that where he had total hours worked, paid out.
Yeah, anywhere that there's not a number, I think, using your form.
Anywhere there's an X.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think that either side was thinking about this at the time, and so
Got it.
I get what you gave us, but if we can plug those numbers, we can look at it clearly.
Okay. And then the group of people, Vance, when you and I were in my office and we were starring those, so did you understand those? I believe those people worked. They were mostly secretaries. They probably worked on Monday. They just did not submit a option sheet.
Yeah, I'm confused as to how that happened. Why they weren't. You guys manage all of that. Why wasn't these sheets collected from them? right? Because I know I got my supervisor to come in and sign these.
Well, some of them might have got emails and just didn't do it, didn't follow up.
Right.
You know what I
So
mean?
I'd like to have an understanding of what happened with each individual.
So for those 6, I think, or so secretaries, however, you know, a verification. So like you had one employee on there who there's a notes column, that employee acknowledged receipt and is declining a benefit, basically.
Right. Yep.
So you're basically wanting to verify that those 6 individuals were either
Hold on.
following suit or we want to make sure that we made every effort to get what they were choosing.
So, well, I feel like it's a little bit after the horse has gone on the barn. Now we're trying to shut the door. I'm not so interested in the process. I mean, I guess it would be good to know for future things, but I'm more concerned about what we did for these folks. So did I hear you say that somebody declined to choose either option and they got nothing?
So everybody got paid.
Okay. Yeah. So they got paid time and a half if they did nothing.
No.
Like, let's say it's Monday and I declined the benefit.
So the person we're talking about there is Ira Jackson.
Yeah.
Ira worked 8 hours.
Okay.
Ira got paid 8 hours.
Right.
Ira was given the option of getting time and a half on 8 hours or getting 8 hours of comp time. Ira stated he doesn't, the district has already paid me for that day. And as I recall, at least 4 weeks of pay because of COVID-19. I appreciate the district looking out for my best interest and appreciate my job. But I just don't feel right. So I'd like to pass on this. So he is saying, I don't want time and a half and I don't want time. The district, I'm getting paid for my 8 hours and I feel that that's fair.
Okay, so he doesn't have that ability because that would be an extra contractual contract that would lessen the benefits that we have negotiated. So, I mean, it's admirable of him, but he should have been paid time and a half.
Well, we can't force him to put it in the bank account if we write a check to him and he never cashes it. Yep.
You are right. You are right. I suspect he's got direct deposit, but if you write him a check and he tears it up, that's his business. You haven't violated our contract or our agreement. That's his thing. But we can't let people do. I mean, we literally are putting that in the contract too, right? So we can't let folks negotiate less than the terms that we agree to. I mean, that's just not something we can do. I think it's an admirable position, but I guess I'm at the point where if these people they didn't follow through, they've given up their choice, and they should be paid time and a half. If they didn't follow through, if you showed that you sent them an email and they didn't follow through, they should just be paid time and a half and they should be done. That should be it. Because they had their option like Vance did, who responded to his email, who did the things he was supposed to do. You've done your job by contacting them as we agreed. They default to the time and a half payment because that's where we're at. If they choose not to exercise choice, then the choice gets made for them, right? Like many things in our contract, if you if you choose not to follow your timelines, then you live with what you have, right? So I would suggest that that's probably where we would go once we find out the information about these half dozen folks that maybe didn't respond. If you guys sent them emails and they didn't respond, they need to be paid time and a half. And God bless Ira, but you know what? We can't have 200 different contracts here. We gotta have one. So
if you take Ira and the 6 other people, and you're saying that the default is they get time and a half,
right?
Then how does that not be exactly what we're doing with the option B default to time and a half? How is
because these people did not respond. They did not follow the process. They did not do anything. So it's kind of the old saying, beggars can't be choosers, right? They chose not to respond. You reached out to them, they chose not to respond, or they chose some other thing that wasn't one of their options. And so therefore they get the default, right? I think
that's the default. The default's the default, whether you turn, you're arguing that if you didn't turn something in, you get a default, but if you did turn something in, that you get a default plus some more.
The argument is this, Dan. We're talking about 2 options, right? If you didn't choose, we're not having really any that I'm aware of, any other discussions about people that chose time and a half, right? Our rub is with what happens if you got it as comp time, right? That's where we have a difference of opinion. I don't think any of us misunderstand it. If somebody says, I want time and a half, they get paid time and a half. I don't think there's any issue with that part of the MOU that I'm aware of. This is like a separate little wrinkle that I apparently didn't know that was out there until we saw this, that somebody wanted to decline time and a half and other people did not respond to you. None of those things are your fault, you know, they're not our fault, they're just what happened. And they would get the default of time and a half. That would be, I can't think of any other issues with time and a half unless you've got something I'm not aware of, but that's what we're talking about. Now, if you switch to comp time, that's where we have the difference of opinion and that we're trying to work our way through, if that makes sense. But we don't think that Ira he's not the you know, representative of the union. He's not their bargaining agent. He doesn't have the ability to do what he offered to do. I understand his reasoning, and I think it's admirable, but he just doesn't have that right. We have one contract, you know. We don't have 200 for each employee, you know, one for each employee. So I guess that's where we're at. Let me know if we have an issue with that. We can amend the grievance, but I think that's a simple fix, that people that didn't respond get paid time and a half. They've given up their choice to the comp time issue.
Well, I think, Kobe, there are lots of things in the contract that are options for people that they might not choose to exercise. You know, I mean, yeah, I go take a class that could be covered by tuition reimbursement or whatever, but I choose not to put my, you know, I choose not to submit my mileage, or I choose not to submit the meals, or you know, and I have a right to those. I incur the expense, but I just choose not to do them. That doesn't mean we have to hunt them down and say, you know, we'll track you down and find out how much you spent on that lunch, you know, at Denny's on the way to your workshop, because by golly, we're going to pay you for it because it's a right of yours under the contract. So there's a lot of situations where people have some contractual rights, but they also have to exercise some sort of effort to get them, you know.
Right, and I would agree in the scenarios you give. I would agree with that. This is not that scenario. This was option A or option B, or you get option A. I mean, that's the discussion at the time, is that people that wanted to do that could, you know, opt to do the comp time. Otherwise, they would get time and a half. That's the discussion we had. That's what we agreed to, and I mean, that should be. I don't know why that would be at issue now, but I understand what Ira said, and, you know, like I said, it's admirable, but in the same respect too, we have a contract, we have an agreement, you know, and if we allow people to erode the benefits of the contract, that creates a different problem, you know, and that's not something that I'm interested in, and I wouldn't think you guys would be too, because it could cut both ways on that, you know. But regardless of that fact, you know, this is something that at the time we had the discussion, it would be one or the other. That was the discussion. It wasn't that they could just opt out. So going forward, if we want to have that discussion for the next thing we talk about, we can have that discussion. But that's not what happened here. So I'm trying to resolve what's happening with this here. I think that when we're talking about like mileage, like you're saying, you know, those people understand. They are making an option, because to get paid, they have to do X, Y, and Z, and they're choosing not to do that. So they're choosing they don't want to be paid. Now, if they're on the clock, we might have a different issue, because it can cause a lot of problems for us, you know, if they have liabilities and stuff when they drive around. But on the issue of that, those are the things they have to do if they want to be paid. That's understandable. This here, the discussion was, it will be this or this, and that's what we talked about. So it's a different scenario. So I don't want to get too hung up on this, because I feel like this is the least of our issues, trying to figure this out. But we definitely would take the position that these people need to be paid time and a half. They did not choose, so they get the default. If that's in any way not what you guys are agreeing with, let me know. We can amend the grievance, and we can have a further discussion with that. I don't think we need to file a new grievance, because this is brand new information to me right now, but I'm hoping that we can stay focused on the one piece, because I think we got our hands full with that. But I'll leave that ball in your court. You guys let me know what you decide with that. But the key thing, we're losing you. Hold on a second. Dang, computer was going to sleep. But but my hope is that we can keep moving forward on this with the information request and get the other piece figured out. But I guess just let me know what you guys want to do with that, and we'll go from there. Does that sound reasonable?
So it sounds like we're going to get some more information for you and then return and have some sort of a conversation on the 6th.
Yeah, I would. I mean, we'll push out the abeyance through the 6th, and I think that gives us time to get information and and really kind of dig into this and understand where we're at, and then I'm hoping we can settle it. That's the goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
this chart went a long way towards helping me understand, the situation. So
basically, I'm going to refill. We're going to add where there's X's in the 2 columns under column B. We're going to add either some payout hours or how many hours are sitting in the extension, basically.
Yeah. Just anywhere there's an X, just put a number and you'd be safe. Just as long as it's the right number. So, but yeah, I think we are really close to figuring out something here. We just need that last little piece of the puzzle. This was a great help. Thank you for doing it. It helped us to really kind of narrow down to what we're talking about, and I think we're close. I'll be honest with you, I think we're real close when we get that other information.
Can we talk a little bit about the 6th and meeting in person and a little bit of timeline too? With that, can we spend a little bit of time doing that?
Absolutely.
So, Vance, or either one of you, where do you think the best? Vance, you've mentioned the small gym. Is that?
Yeah. I'm comfortable with the small gym. I've been told that the acoustics in there aren't great, but the library, I think at the middle school, may work as well. There's no air conditioning in there. There is in the gym.
What about the library at the high school, or is that being used, or?
I don't know if it's available or not.
Do you want us to get a list of sites and do the 6-foot marking with the tape and figure it out for you? Would that be helpful?
That would be helpful.
Okay, do you have any idea about how many visitors besides your team might be in presence? Because it seems like that is going to be an issue.
Yeah,
that's where we think the gym would work better with the bleachers.
Honestly, I actually had a thought, and I haven't even talked to Vance about this. Sorry, Vance. Would it be, just because, yes, we can have up to 25 people, but do we want 25 people in a room? That's my question. I'm thinking it might make more sense to just utilize Zoom and to stream when we're in the room. Is that something that Drew can do? I don't know why you couldn't, but I know some other areas have done that, but I thought that might be simpler, because we keep the numbers down, but we also, we can space, but we can also, people can see if they really want to come and see,
So the teams are present in real time. They're in a room, but the people who would be only observers would be on Zoom remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about too.
Yeah, that would be better for us, and I would probably keep our team as our in-person team to be Nancy, myself, and Steve and Kevin. So we would only have 4. I know Janet would not want to, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but my guess is Janet would not want to be in person. I doubt Dana would want to be in person. So I'm wondering if, would this space where you're in, if we kind of reconfigured, I'm not sure how we might do that. Could we, would that space be where we could space out around or is there a larger classroom space where we could each have our own desk maybe or something?
We could do it in here. We could do it in here if you agree we get the high ground in. No, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Rather than speculate, we will take that on as our job to figure out, to give you some options. And that way we can kind of, maybe have 3 or 4 different options so people can kind of, figure out maybe what feels the best or works the best. Our team, I believe, is 7. So I think one of them probably will probably watch on Zoom and then join us in caucus kind of thing, digitally in our breakout room. So yeah, let us work on the logistics for you and figure that out. These folks here know way better than I do. So, but I think we can give you probably 2 or 3, 4 options, and then you guys can look at them and see what makes the most sense.
Okay.
So, in terms of time, so I'm wondering if potentially we could start a little bit earlier, and our superintendent wants to do a town hall related to reopening. And so at 7 o'clock, we're scheduled from 2 to 7. So I have some logistics there I need to kind of work out. So are we open to an earlier start time? And I haven't even asked Nancy if she's available.
I'm available. Yep.
I proposed it in Article 7, as Nancy said, that we could flex our time by mutual agreement. So I think we're okay with starting a little earlier. Obviously, we need to run it by the team. Are we talking about the 6th specifically?
Yeah. Well, just the 6th, because we don't even have any dates after that on the calendar, do we?
Yeah. No, I don't think. I think you're right. I think that's it. Yeah, I think let me run it through the team here with Vance, but I think we could probably make that happen. You're thinking what, like start at like noon again?
Yeah, I think noon might be a good target time.
Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll get you those options. We'll get with the team, and if there's any weirdness, we'll let you know. But I think generally speaking, most of them can make it here by noon. And then the other thing we're going to do too is figure out breakout rooms for folks. They can be a little smaller since the teams are smaller when they're not together, but that way we can have caucus rooms. We'll figure that out to give you some options with each location that we point out, okay?
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sounds good. Yep.
All right.
And then so from there, we'll figure out if we need to start it, do for these topics that we've discussed, whether we start at like 10 or 11, something like that and I'll be down there that morning. So whether we find a space at the district office or that space wherever you guys decide for just the 4 of us to discuss those.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and we will need a break between, like, we'll need to be out of any meeting we start by 11 on our end.
Sure.
We're starting at noon. But
Yeah.
we can 8, 9 in the morning, whatever, 7 in the morning, 5 in the morning, whatever you need, Dan.
It won't be that early.
No, too.
Yeah.
I'm 6.
Yeah.
Hobie, about this afternoon, Hobie, I sent you Article 7, and Kevin had reformulated it and put the consistent numbering and so forth. So I think we're in agreement, but I wanted you to just take a look at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you have a chance to do that before we meet, then maybe we can TA that.
Okay.
So
there is one piece in here that keeps popping up, and I keep taking out, but you keep putting in, Nancy. It's under work release time. It says as described, the number 7 below, and I don't know.
Hold on.
No problem. Sorry. Let me spring it on you.
Okay, so what part are you talking about?
It's under number 6, and it's next to the second to the last sentence. It says, and it's in yellow. It says, as described in number 7 below. And I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Well, I think it refers to all of those various listed provisions down below, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
So, okay. So why I keep taking it out is because it makes it sound like if we're doing these things below, that OTA would be paying them when the law says the district has to pay them. And so I'm just confused by that. So I figured I'd bring that up while I have you here. Did you see what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, so I think we have, this later provision for some long-term leave that's like up to 3 months. So that's not included in here. That has a separate provision for the association to pay. So I guess what I felt like is we needed to give some clarification in A as to, what kinds of things are we talking about when we're talking about this release. So many of these things will be like an hour probably. And maybe you'll have a couple of people present at some of them. But there's really otherwise no definition up there under A as to, well, what are we talking about when we're talking about 16 work days? I don't know.
Just real quick, I'm going to step away for a minute. So when you guys are talking a little bit more, Nancy, if you want my input, I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. So my thought was that what we were talking about were all of these kind of short-term, maybe portions of days, even as little as an hour for some of this stuff that's going on. And I think we just want some clarification in there as to, well, what do those 16 work days mean? What do we charge you for? Because it provides later on that we have to send you a bill.
Right.
And then you have to, and that's also separate from some other things. I think, that section on new hire / non-union member classified employee meetings
Right.
is a separate section. So
Right.
I'm just trying to make sure that when we finish here, we're not saying, oh, what, and now that I think about it, I think maybe it shouldn't be as described in section 7 below. It should be as section B below, because B is where those listed things are.
Okay, I think that's the rub, because how we've used A in the past is like Vance comes out and he does we do a membership drive, right? So we pay him for the day, comes out, does a membership drive, or we have a training we wanted to come down to at the union hall, so we take him off for the day, we bring him down for the training, or that's how we've used that language in the past.
Mm-hmm.
The red flag for me is that when it says as described in 7 below, or even with B, we're taking something that we're mingling it into a scenario where somebody could say, well, wait, if they need to investigate that grievance, you have to reimburse us for that time, which is not the intent of the law, as it's been explained to me. The intent of the law is that they would go on district time and do that investigation. So that's my concern there.
Yeah, I guess I disagree with that. I think the intent of the law is that your employees, the members of your bargaining unit, get released. But the provision of the law for the designated representatives is something that we can bargain about as to how much time there is, especially since, part of this bargain is with Vance or anybody else in his position, we've agreed to some limit on that. And I think we need to know, well, what's covered under that? What kind of activities? So that's why it's like these activities, but then when you get to number 7, and that's why I think it shouldn't be 7, it should be B, that employee orientation. Well, now you have in-service week. We're not going to charge you for in-service week because that's kind of a separate entitlement that the law gives for your officers to meet with new employees, have some opportunity to meet with old employees too, the 60-minute period. So that's kind of what we wanted to be more specific about was, well, what is that 16-day portion, which I think it was 10 in our old contract.
It was.
What does that cover in that section? But that would be just for designated representatives. It wouldn't be for the members who might be, pulled away from work for a period of time when the designated rep comes out to have these meetings. So,
yeah, I understand what you're saying there. I would tell you this: if I was to agree to this, you wouldn't have to bargain with me anymore. I'd be on my way back to Washington. So they're not going to want to. They're not going to. They were very clear that, if we're investigating a grievance or an issue, that's on the district's time. That's how the attorneys explained to me, and more importantly, my bosses explained to me that way. I would say if there was a dispute about that, then we have those safeguards for you folks. Do you know what's going on? How much time it's going to be? We have that already in this agreement was it 8B or something like that, where it talks about giving notice, giving the detail what you're doing. Right? The whole point of that section is so that you don't lose control and have like 25 people running around doing things. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would just say that piece right there, I can't agree with the way it's written. If we remove the highlighted portion, we'll keep with the same practice of, if we pull him out for the day, we're paying you. We pull him out for whatever it is, we're paying you. But any investigations he does, or any designated representative does, like it says many times throughout this agreement that the designated representative and the member will be paid. It says that multiple times in here, so I think this conflicts with that in general. But it also would fundamentally change what the practice has been, which is to pull these people out for drives or pull them out for trainings. It's not meant to. It's not meant to be something that would limit. I guess not limit, but it would put that cost onto OSCA, which was not the intent, as it's been explained to me. So, food for thought. I'm just letting you know that.
Well, I guess my question would be, what does A refer to, though? So it refers to the association president or designee, and it refers to the fact that now there are 16 work days
right,
as opposed to 10. So we're adding 6 more to what was there before, but that would have to be assigned to somebody else, I guess, or somebody's else. But which circumstances do you see those covering if not the list under B?
You know what it is? I just realized something, Nancy. We're duplicating ourselves, because under the release time of 2016, that really speaks to what I'm talking about in A here, because we didn't have that before, right? So that release time there was none of this other stuff. So that release time was about pulling them out to do things for the union, right? And we would reimburse you for those days. We probably could strike A and go with 12A, because it says the same thing. But granted, 3 months release time, we have to give you notice. All these different. It's talking about similar stuff. So we would just, under 12A, we could just send you, say, hey, we need advance for the day for an organized drive, or we need advance for the day for a training. I don't see why. That makes it a lot cleaner, right? Because we're separating those things out. I think that makes it
I'm not sure I'm following you. So what kinds of things are you saying would be covered with the 16 days and the reimbursement?
Oh, what I'm saying is that how we've done it in the past, because we didn't have the new release language we're talking about under our new 12, we didn't have that before this law. So this A would cover Vance or another member coming off the job. We pay you for the time they're gone to do an organizing drive, or to come down and do a training, for an all-day training at the office, right? That's how that language has been used in the past. But I just realized that A of 6A and 12A are basically saying the same thing. But 12A is a little bit cleaner, because it talks about labor-related conferences, trainings, events. It's clear. It's answering your question more, I think, of what would we have these people doing while they're off. I think
that 12A is from a part of the law that really was intended to allow you to pull people for big blocks of time. so that, for instance, the example I can think of is when we have ballot measures. Well, oftentimes both OEA and OSCA would pull somebody for 3 months in the fall, and they would, actually probably get paid by the state for your state organization for that. So I see 12A as being different.
So maybe it would be cleaner if we moved 6A under 12. So we would have 15 days where we're pulling it off for organizing drives and trainings like you're talking about, not a huge block, but actually the 16 days that we're talking about.
Mhm.
And then that would leave everything at 6 alone. We wouldn't have to worry about that. And it would be under the release time, which is probably kind of a smarter place to put it anyway, I think, because it just puts it in one spot. And then our understanding would be, if we're pulling them off for the day, we're going to pay you, the fixed costs. If we're pulling them off for, whatever the issue may be, little increments of time, not that big block you're talking of, that might make more sense. If we put it there, maybe make that the new A and then make the other one B, so that it shows a progression from the 16 days to the big block of time for initiatives or whatever you're talking about the examples you gave. Would that make more sense?
I wonder if if the titles were different, because when I look at 6, I see local advocacy. I see Vance taking taking days scheduled throughout to go check in and work sites, the lunch and learns that you've talked about, local. So I wonder if the titles would be what would help clarify, work release time for local activity, and 12B release time for political, activity outside of the local. That's how because I do see them very different.
Sure.
I see myself, not really, but I see, Vance and I working under number 6 a lot closer than I'm going to really ever get involved in 12, other than I probably ought to know.
Well, and I think to that point, Dan, I think that you could move 6A under 12, because I think if you put it at the start, it shows a progression like you're talking about, and it could still be for local issues, whatever we're pulling them off the day for, right? That could still be the case, but it feels like it fits more appropriately under there, because we're talking about all kinds of leads under there, right? And how that works. And if it's the first thing where it says 16 days, and we're pulling them off to do a series of lunch and learns, or to do site stuff, or we're pulling them off for trainings, or we're pulling them off for organizing drives, that would seem to make sense. And then right below it would be the new B, which is 12A currently, which would say, hey, employees shall be granted 3 months off. Now we know we're talking about something different. It's not limited, it's more of a big block. And I think it would take care of our problem over here. In fact, I could probably just move that over, and then that might, because it kind of makes sense to have, it's kind of like Nancy made a really great point about, why are we putting political leave under Article 7 as a union right, when if we put it under 19, what the other leaves are, right? So it's all together. It's still a union right, but it's under 19, so we have all the leads together. That's kind of my thinking here, is when we look for release time, we look in one section, we don't look in 3, right? And it would show a progression, like Nancy pointed out, and I think she's right. 3 months at a time for development measures and stuff, yep, makes sense. But this would be the first thing showing, this is the 16 days, this, our practice, even since you've been here, Dan, you've known some of this practice of, we pull Vance or run off to do an organizing drive, right?
Mhm.
Pull them off, yes. So I think that would show a progression there that would be very clear to anybody when we're gone looking at this, what the intent is, without muddying the waters of 6. And it would define it the way that you're talking about, Nancy, where we're talking about people, we're taking off for a day at a time, or 2 days at a time, or we're not talking about a 3-month block.
Yeah, right. I think that, I guess I sort of go with what Dan was saying, is that they're distinctly different, as witnessed by the fact that the part of the law that comes into play here in 12 has discussion about reinstatement rights. And so it clearly contemplates the idea that somebody's going to be pulled out for a block of time. And so I guess we we could put those together in one area of the contract under, you know, some sort of title. They're both called release time. So
Right.
I guess we could call, you know, release time like short-term release time, and then long-term release time or something like that.
Yeah, I like that. Let's do that.
Okay.
I'll make that notification and send it back to you. All right.
Well, we can probably have Kevin do the moving around and, you know, change it to short-term and long-term. Also, you know, that helps us, I think, decide what pigeonhole different things fit in. So,
Well,
So-
what else? I have it up here, so I'll probably just send it to you since I
okay,
have it up.
all right, that
Right.
sounds fine. Yep.
Nothing against Kevin.
Yeah. Well, I don't try to do any of this myself because it's too complex to even start moving around. But yeah, if you want to send that to us, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I will.
Why don't you do that? Then when we're going to meet, I guess, a little bit before we start. So we'll take a look at it. Maybe we can then be able to TA. So.
Yeah, and I do hope we can today. We're really close on a couple things. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for clearing that up. I really appreciate it, Nancy. I think that was the sticking point that I really needed to talk to you most about. So
Mhm.
I think that we figured something out here that hopefully will work for both, and we'll send it your way shortly, okay?
Okay.
Hey,
All right.
so Nancy, our group's going to meet at 11:30, so I'll send out probably another link. So be checking your email.
Okay.
And then we'll see Vance, you, and Hobie at noon. Just so you guys know, I'm going on vacation on Thursday and coming back. I'll be back obviously for the following Thursday. The 2 days I'm flying, Thursday and next Wednesday, it's going to be pretty tough to reach me. With everything that's going on, it's going to be hard for me to go completely off the grid. Text message would be the best way. If like something's in my inbox, text me will be the best way to go. Just heads up there that if I'm not responding to email, it's not personal.
Well, nature reciprocity. I'm gonna be Friday through Monday fishing, so don't
Okay.
call me. It's the only vacation I'm gonna get this year.
Perfect
Hey, where are
timing.
you going, hubby? Where are you going to go fishing?
I'm gonna go up to a little known place called Radar Lake up in southern Washington. It was it didn't have a sign until about 2 years ago. They finally put up a sign for it, so now people know about it a little bit, which is not cool. But there's like campsites around the lake, so I'm gonna drive up there Thursday night after work, put up tents for me and my friends, so we take over the whole lake, so we can have it to ourselves to fish. So it's a stocked lake, it's stocked with trout, so you know.
Well, it looks like we're going to have good weather. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just high enough in the foothills there that it'll probably be about 20 degrees cooler by the lake there, so that'll be nice. Yeah. So, all right, we're gonna see you guys at noon then, right?
Yep.
Okay.
See you guys.
All right.
All right.
Yep.
We'll
Bye.
see you
Thank
there.
you. So, where do you want to begin, Dan? You want us to present one? You present one, that kind of thing?
Well, I think that we were going to, since today's focus is on everything that's tied to has a economic component to it, that we would start. Nancy had some things to introduce along those lines, and then Steve will talk about our economic counter proposal, because I think that'll kind of, again, your proposals do have an economic impact, if you will. So does that sound good that we would start with bring our economic proposal to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just start off with a little introduction. We have made a lot of progress in terms of settling a lot of articles, and I appreciate the work your team has put in on that. It's been a good process. Most of what we have remaining is either economic related, or we have a few articles, I think like nine being one of them, 11, 12, where we have like only one item in that whole article, each of those where we're still apart. But So we're giving you kind of a package proposal here. Our positions on those articles, but then also the truly economic ones. We gave you a proposal on vacations last time, that's Article 15, and 16 on holidays. So that's tied up in this package. We're going to give you a proposal on 19 about leaves and Article 24 salary. We gave you a proposal on insurance last time, or maybe it was the time before last. But this also includes, as part of the package, our last insurance proposal. So we're getting down to the stage where everything is sort of interdependent now in terms of what it's going to take to put an agreement together. So that's how we're looking at the remaining issues. But just by highlighting what we intend to produce here today, leaves, that involves an issue of personal leave, which is a fairly spendy portion of a proposal. And then salary, there are a number of different subparts of that, including cost of living, but also including any changes in the salary schedule or adjustments for individual positions or categories of positions. So there are a number of parts of that, longevity being another one. Those all have a price tag, and we all, we look at the total cost, I think, when we're giving you a proposal. So with that introduction, have Steve go over in particular Articles 24 and 19, and anything else he wants to talk about.
So I've already sent them 19 and 24. So
Okay.
Steve, if you want to start with,
Sure.
start with 24.
Yeah. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. How you doing today?
All right.
Hopefully it's a nice air-conditioned room on a hot day. So yeah, a number of things I wanted to talk about. I guess the first thing, more at a higher levels, just the state budget update and the timing. I know that you received, and we also received, obviously from our different sources that we rely upon, the legislative co-chair's rebalancing plan, which was very positive for K-12, as we both know. As we figured, since the last quarterly economic forecast, they still, as part of this rebalancing plan, their goal is to rebalance the budget with keeping the $9.0 billion funding level for the rest of this biennium. We receive a double payment in July to kick off the year, and they indeed, ODE sent us a payment based on that funding level. They also are keeping Measure 98 funded at 100%, and then the SIA at about, or Student Success Act Student Investment Account, the new program funded at 33% funding level. So it looks good, but it's not official until the full legislative body comes back in August. I was on a ODE OASBO kind of bi-weekly call last Friday, and right now it looks like they're going to come back on August 10th to take action on the co-chair's plan. And so that's what we're hoping for, is that they'll at least plan on keeping the K-12 part untouched and as presented in the rebalancing plan. So that's where that is. That's really good news. Before I talked about the specific articles, I also wanted to just comment on Vance. I believe you had sent over work that you and Hobie did with the comparison spreadsheet last Friday, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. I appreciate the work that you did with that. The way that you laid out the spreadsheet is exactly the way that I like to do it, and with the min and the max by position, and with all the different school districts. As you know, it can be hard to match columns up in an apples to apples format, so to speak, because every district may name their position something maybe a little bit different, or the scope of the job might look a little different. And so, as we do these comparisons, we try to glean as much as we can from the info we have, and sometimes have to reach out to the districts. And I haven't gotten through, every district that you had on here, but we did have over half of the districts you have on here were ones that we were also comparing to, and I was looking at as well. So I really appreciate that. One thing that I did want to mention, and we can work on this later this week, but the data for Silver Falls. The other thing I want to say is I really appreciate the fact that you went to 0102. I hadn't looked back that far, and I really think that adds a good metric to look at a 18, 19, 20-year history. I think that's helpful. So thank you for that. I did want to comment that the green row, Silver Falls, 1920, row number 12, after column C, or the detention monitor column, after column B, the data for our current agreement, all the way from C all the way across, reverts back to our 1718 wage scale, not the 1920. So that's something that we'll just need to update. I actually, I had a little time on Friday to review it, and I'll email, when I'm done talking here, I'll email you, Hobie and Vance, my Scribble version of, I kind of circled and plugged in the rates that were 17, 18, and I'll work on, between the two of us, we can reconcile the spreadsheet in a later exercise, so we could take a closer look at the positions. I was also looking at Cascade, which we already had their data as well, and there were a few cells that had incorrect data, but most of it was fine. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that, and I'll just send that over, because that obviously affects the calculations and comparisons at the bottom, obviously. So,
hey Steve, can you also send some of this data entry was done by Ty as well? So could you also CC him on that email?
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you again for that work. Really appreciate it. So really just, I'm kind of referring here to Articles 4, 19, and 24. Article 4, insurance. We are countering your latest counter proposal with basically our same proposal from June 15th, which was to remain level with the $1,645 per month employer contribution towards insurance, as we did in 1920. We did, though, in this proposal that we did on June 15th, we did bring the non-HSA and HSA plans together at the 1645 level, because the non-HSA plans were at the 1260 per month. So that was the change, but the cap remained at 1645. And then we did put in the $400 per month opt-out that would go to an HRA Viva plan. So basically, Article 4 is the same.
Steve, before you, is Article 4 considered part of this bundle too?
Is part of this?
This bundle, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
And there's a reason. I'll circle back on that. The reason that we're making sure these are together is because we're kind of looking at what I believe is an important point of total compensation, and how much, relating how much an insurance contribution is on a per hour basis. So, when we look at the wage comparison, for example, we could be high or low depending on a position, and we're certainly willing after bargaining to look at individual positions if they seem to be a little bit out of whack against our employees in terms of that process, and there may be a few positions that need that. I know we can talk more about and dig into that deeper as we go down the road, but there's a process kind of defined for that outside of bargaining, but essentially we need to come up with what we agree on for COLA and insurance for all. But it's also important to keep in our mindset, you know, even if we were, say, 20 or 30 cents below maybe a neighbor's wage, if our insurance is better than anyone else's, it's really important to keep how much that is worth on an hourly rate in mind. And I actually have a graphic that I'll email to you, but I'll also pop up on the screen after I highlight the rest of the details of the next two articles. I'll come back to that. The next one is Article 19, leaves. So we did, I think Dan already sent that to you, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. We did go ahead and add a third personal leave day for all employees in the unit. I don't have your previous 19 in front of me. I know there was a couple other things, the word may in line item 1, and looks like some other language under bereavement leave for number 3. But the big part of this is that we did add a third personal leave day, and then also item number 8, military leave. Maybe someone else could speak to that, but
yeah, Kevin's got it up there on the screen now. So that's where the personal leave adding go from 2 to 3 for all employees.
Yeah.
And then the military leave is a proposal you made, but you had it in a separate article and we moved it here. And then likewise down there under political leave, that was a proposal that you made in the association rights article. And we felt, and I think we talked about this earlier, that was maybe better off here because political leave isn't necessarily linked to association activity. It could be that we simply have a member of your bargaining unit who wants to run for office or who is successful and needs to take leave during a legislative session, for instance. So.
Yeah,
okay.
makes sense.
Any questions on Article 19, Ovi, Vance, or team?
Oh, I think we understand.
Okay. All right. And then, so for Article 24, we're basically, proposing a 1-year, financial offer here, and we're proposing a 2% COLA, and we did not make any changes to the step structure at this time or the longevity structure at this time. We, under number 7, bilingual differential, we agreed to item A on the 1-hour increment rather than 15 minutes. We also just kind of, I think, aim to improve or maybe clear up the wording a little bit on number 8 for swing shift to begins at 2 o'clock or later instead of just after 2 o'clock. And we updated the rate on 10B, which is currently $19.76 per hour under that extra duty compensation. So just a few comments on the comp. Again, kind of looking at it as a total comp package, knowing that we also possibly could be lagging maybe in some positions that we're certainly open to discussion on at some point post bargaining. We also just because we didn't agree to the step structure change doesn't mean that it's not open for conversation. But I wanted to show a graphic just because it's important to want to make sure we understand, on the insurance and the total comp, and that we want to look at both of those things together when comparing to other districts. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
And I did send this to Hobie and Vance
Oh, you did? Okay.
just a little bit before.
Oh, okay.
But I think it'd be good to have it up on the
I'll
screen.
go ahead and put it on the screen here as well. Everyone see this here?
Yeah.
Okay. So Hobie and Vance, you received this?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to make the correlation again on, when comparing the districts that we had. I think we had about 6 neighbors. Everyone that you had on yours plus Mount Angel on the comp sheet. I don't think you had them, but you had some other ones that we didn't have. So at $1,645 per month, $19,740 per year, we were at least $100 and in some cases $300 better than other districts. I know we were $300 better than Salem Kaiser per month. And so, as you know, we have employees in the classified union that work anywhere from 1,260 hours per year to 2,080 hours per year. And anywhere from 1,260 to 2,080 hours per year gets the $1,645 per month. Someone that works less than 1,260 per year is going to get some sort of a prorated, based on number of hours per day, whether it's 6 hours, 5 hours, or 4 hours per day. But in looking at the different groups that get the full $1,645 per month, it's important to look at the per hour value of the insurance. So in this case, a 1,260 hour employee, their insurance benefit is worth $15.67 per hour. A 209 day per year employee, it's worth $11.81 per hour. And a 2,080 hour per year employee is worth $9.49 per hour. Another way to look at this is when we're looking at the difference between districts. So for example, if we're $300 a month better than Salem Kaiser, a 1,260 hour per year employee, that's worth 95 cents per hour for every $100 a month that's on that benefit. So for Salem Kaiser, for example, we would be $2.85 per hour better on insurance than they are. Also, that 65.1% amount represents the difference between a 260 day per year employee and a 180 day, 7 hour per day employee in terms of the value of that benefit. It's 65% better. So anyway, I just feel like this is an important metric, not only to kind of just say that, there's obviously a lot of complexities with, having, a wide range of hours work in the same association or unit, but also just that has to be applied in the comparison as far as total compensation with other districts as well. The other thing I wanted to mention while we're on insurance is, the opt-out is something that obviously at this time we're both agreeing to conceptually. It's just a matter of what is the amount. And it's going to be very important to have an agreement done, at least with regards to that, by late August, because if we want that to go into effect for the 2020-21 school year, which that's our insurance year as well, from 10/1 through 9/30, we have open enrollment from August 15th through September 15th. And for employees to be able to select an opt-out, that would have to happen during the open enrollment period. So I think that's all the highlights that I had, and I'm definitely willing to entertain any questions you have at this point.
No, does anybody have any questions? I think we understand where you're coming from and what you're saying, and how you believe you come up with those numbers. I think that's all pretty straightforward. Obviously, we'll have to caucus and have some discussions, but I think at this moment we're okay until we have a chance to talk.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to send us over 15 then, or 15, 16?
Yeah, we thought we would get that to you, and then you could we could present that for you. No, I got it. It's on its way.
Okay. Not sure if the hamster's taking a break right now and it's not spinning on its wheel, or hasn't arrived yet. Oh, there we go.
That's just slow today. Must be getting
I
overheated.
wonder if it's because it came from an outside email account, maybe. I don't know. That's just my guess.
Could be.
All right. All right, sending it over to my team.
All right, so with 15 here, if you scroll down, you'll see, if you can scroll down just a little, you'll see that I think we're all pretty much in agreement through 14. I think you guys jumped to 17. We broke that up to 16, 18, just because like every other year seemed a little better for folks than waiting like a chunk. So that's about the only real difference with that part of the schedule. Again, not talking about more days, just talking about when they're assigned. So that's what we stuck with that. It's in yellow because yellow is our previous our previous change. So on the next page, 1B, we've been making a point to point out that other districts give time to the 10-month employee in the form of vacation. And Nancy rightfully pointed out that in many cases, they do get additional days, but they have to take them at a scheduled break time, whether it's spring break or winter break, whatever, so that they don't have to find subs and, go through that regular role. And so we modified our proposal from a schedule, much like we just saw on the previous page, for our 10-month employees that came back with the 7 paid to be taken during regular scheduled breaks for that reason. And then below, there's been no change to number 2 below. Realistically, we view this as a management issue. If a person's not taking their vacation, they should be, and management should be enforcing that. So if don't take your vacation, and management doesn't enforce it, then anything above your accrual would cash out because you did earn it. It's earned time. It's not time that is awarded or, anything like that. You actually earn that time by being here and working. So that we left that in there for that reason, and with the understanding that, management controls this. People pick when they want to take their vacation. If they don't, management, controls from that point if they don't do it. Number 5 below is an interesting thing. Rather than go through a whole bunch of language changes, we thought we'd take a stab at having the groups meet. There seems to be a very muddled process of taking vacation, how much vacation you can take, when you can take it. It felt like a huge lift. So we scaled back some of our other vacation stuff and came back with this because we thought if we could put together a group to sit down and have this discussion and come to some agreement, that would go a long way to clearing this process so people can know what to expect when they want to take vacation. They know these are the rules and how you do it, how much you take, when you take it, all those kind of things. Again, I didn't feel like we needed a huge amount of language. We probably just needed to have a group get together, have a discussion so they can talk about the different ways it's been applied and figure out a way to come to an agreement. So that's where 5 comes from. So questions about Article 15, vacations?
So essentially, we would be adding 7 days to the calendar. So 180-day employee we would increase that to 187 days because they would get 7 days of vacation.
Yes, but it would be restricted to like spring break or some other break, like winter break or around Thanksgiving, whatever. So you wouldn't have to like replace them with subs and things of that nature, add extra costs like you guys have brought up.
Okay.
That's the idea. If you guys want to talk and discuss after that, that's fine too. I just figured I'd put it out there.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we ready to move to 16?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, no. Okay. All right, well, 16 here, we're going to turn over to Kelly here to present. Go ahead.
So starting on 1, we understand New Year's Eve day, depending on when it is, can create logistical issues. Therefore, instead we are proposing the Juneteenth, as you can see in green. Also, you can see we kept the strikeouts on the asterisk and number 3 because we believe they don't really make sense. And then 2 there. We believe this is fair as we are here working and we aren't asking for days we aren't here, such as the July 4th and the Juneteenth. Obviously, as public employees, we're off during the summer. And then my personal experience working for many different sectors, both nonprofit and for-profit, I have always been paid for these holidays. This is the only job I have not. For me personally, as a public employee, it's already a financial burden to have a week off during spring break, Thanksgiving, and then the 2 weeks off unpaid at Christmas. Having those days paid would help lessen the burden during these times.
All right. And questions on 16?
I don't have any.
Okay.
Nope.
Do we want to set a time to come back and caucus and have some discussion with our folks and come back with some more information?
Yeah, so we're just before 1 o'clock. Nancy, what do you think we might need?
Oh, maybe 1:30. I think, Hobie, we sent back something to you on Article 7. I don't know if that's something you want to take a look at.
I have not sent back over yet.
Oh, we will.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
Okay.
What do we call 45 so that we can, have bathroom break, they can get a little food and that kind of stuff. Does that work?
1:45?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. See you then.
So, Hobie, I understand. So you guys want to spend some more time looking over the economic proposals and spend the afternoon focus on that. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, we're just gonna need more time to come back with something for 19 and 24. So we figured we would, rather than keep you guys waiting there, we know we're gonna take all of those, so.
Okay. Well, we wanted to at least give you a couple verbal agreements. We don't have anything to send to you, but on Article 15 on vacations, we agree to your 16 and 18 years change from what we had previously. So
Okay.
16 years will get 22 days and 18 years will get 23 days. So got a verbal agreement from us on that.
Okay.
And then on 16, we will agree to strike out the asterisk for the Independence Day. And we're going to do just a little bit more digging on that Christmas Eve Day asterisk just to make sure we're not undoing something that we had a reason for doing in the past. But, at this point, we sort of anticipate ourselves striking that one as well. We just want to make sure we understand the implication of that. But we agree to the strikeout of the Independence Day asterisk.
Okay.
And I think overall, as you guys, like Nancy started with this afternoon, we've made so much progress in a short amount of time, I feel, and especially in such a weird way of bargaining this way virtually. Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to being in the room next week and doing it a more traditional way, albeit masked up. Just some things to consider that, I'll throw a few examples out there of, the number of days for less than 12 months, the holidays there, the vacation days. I mean, that adds up to 13 days of paid time off. There's just a lot of different things economically on the table that as your group works this afternoon to think about prioritizing. We didn't talk about longevity stipend, but that's something that I think that we see some improvements for. We're not necessarily oppositional to a lot of the different things that are on there, other than just there being a finite pot of money and how it's being allocated, I guess, if you will. And so just wanted to think about some of those things as you look at the entire economic package this afternoon.
Okay. Yeah, things like longevity stipends, tend to be something that costs you guys a lot less because they got to make it to that stage. But also, when we took a look at like how people turn around in the jobs the first 7 years, it kind of became something where it caught us a little off guard. I guess even the folks that work here were a little surprised by that statistic. So, because I think in most places, like Nancy mentioned before, it's usually a reward for being here like 10, 15, 20 years, right? And I get that. We were trying to address what we felt was a need that might help hold on to that experience, But yeah, we can absolutely. I mean, we plan to look at everything too. It's obviously it's a process, but we want to try to wrap this up, but we want to do it in a way that addresses the majority of concerns that we hear. So that's what we're balancing. So.
Nancy or Steve, Kevin, have any
I was just going to say to Hobie, feel free to give me a call this week about Article 7, because we still have a few loose ends there, but I think we're getting pretty close. So,
yeah, I think we're very close.
Okay.
We'll do.
And,
If you don't hear from me by Thursday, Nancy, aren't gonna hear from me until Tuesday. I'll just give you a heads up.
What did you say, Hobie? You're what now?
Well, I just tell Nancy if she doesn't hear from me by Thursday, she won't hear from me again until Tuesday because I'll be fishing.
Oh, that's right. He's going fishing.
my one time that I get to go have 2 days off.
Hey, Hobie, and Vance, or actually the whole team. You know, I know when we spoke earlier, we talked about starting at noon on next Thursday. You know, our team has the majority of that day available. You know, if we wanted to start even early, I know, you know, maybe the other conversations that you, Nancy, Vance, and I are having could move to the end of the day or something, or another time if your team would like to start even earlier that morning.
Well, Vance says he's ready starting at 6, Dan.
Well, I did. Yeah, that might be a little problematic. So
I'll be here. You know me. I don't sleep. It's okay. What time would you guys like to meet? I think most of us are pretty flexible that day. So what time?
Do we want to go 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock team? What do you guys think?
9 o'clock, 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock?
I cannot do 8 o'clock. I got an appointment that morning. I could do 10. Want to do 10?
Yeah.
All right, so 10 o'clock. And so the in-person team will be Nancy, Steve, Kevin, and myself. And so you guys will kind of let us know what you guys get configured as far as space goes.
Okay, hey Dan, do you want to? You set up a meeting from 8 to 9. Do you want to do a quick meeting with you, me, and Nancy at 9 to see where we're at on the different things? It didn't have to be a long meeting because we're waiting to hear from you if you want to move those two to the main bargaining. So we're really waiting to hear back from you on that. And then the grievance is really what we're talking about. So.
Right. I'll have to think about that. I can probably do 9. Yeah.
I'll jump down as a maybe. You can firm it up with us for the week. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. All righty.
Okay. We'll see you then. Good luck fishing. All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.